Hello, Innovation Challenge hackers. I'm here with Shara Hutchinson from Xposeyour. It's a company that specializes in change management. And thank you so much for putting this idea out there for people to work on. Why don't you just go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us about your startup, and we'll take it from there.
Yes. So, hi, everybody. My name is Shara Hutchinson, founder of Xposeyour, and we specialize, as Matt mentioned, with change management. So, helping organizations who are either implementing a new technology, maybe they're changing a major process or a workflow, or doing something that impacts human, and they need those humans to adopt the new way of doing things. And so, our focus up to this point has been in kind of training and consulting around that. And so now we want to build a product that will help leaders understand the value of managing change successfully.
It's, like here, like at Microsoft, we go through a lot of change all the time. And sometimes we do it well, sometimes we don't. We talk about churn, where you're just kind of treading water and not going anywhere. When you work with customers, who like, what kind of customers are they? When do they, how do they, do they know they've got a problem before they come to you, or they know they might have a problem, or?
Well, it
Yeah,
it spans. Some
yeah,
know they have an issue, some don't.
yeah,
All are navigating some sort of project. And so maybe
yeah,
I'll rewind and talk about like the project. So organizations
yeah,
are always going through some sort of project, right? Where they
yeah,
are they are introducing something new to the organization, like you said, with Microsoft doing that. And when you're managing that project, there's deliverables, right? Even in the
yeah,
development world, there is a
yeah.
budget and there's some sort of technical requirement to make sure that the initiative is executed effectively.
Mhm.
And so what leaders know during the project that makes them think I might need something else is there's resistance, right? Like, so you're like, this is the best product ever,
Yeah,
right? The best process ever, a new change, and why aren't people adopting it? Why
yeah,
aren't they adapting to the new way of doing things? Why did they start using this new technology and then it's been a few months and now no one's using it? And so
yeah,
what they recognize is that yes, you need the solution to be, on time. Yes, you need the budget and the technical requirements, but you also need the people who are impacted by the project to be prepared, feel supported, and be motivated to adopt the change. And that is the part that usually falls through the cracks.
yeah. And it's definitely a people thing, right? They have to want to do it.
Hmm.
And then a lot of times it's coming down from up above through maybe a few layers of management.
Hmm.
And if you get some manager that isn't bought in, it's a problem. What the when a company embarks on the type of change that is important enough to really manage, um, where do they start? Like, how do they know they're going to do it, and they just kind of get going.
Hmm.
But what's the right way to do it?
So I think the right way to do it, and again, I'm biased
Well,
because
you're a pro. Yeah.
I, I'm biased. I'm a pro, but I do believe that beginning with the people. So many times when an organization is introducing something new, it's all about the technical standpoint and the benefits to the company and how
Yeah.
things are going to be so great after this new thing is introduced or implemented. And I believe the right way to do it is number one, like assessing how ready your organization is for that change to begin with, right? Not just assessing it from a capacity standpoint, but even like a leadership standpoint. And Matt, I don't know if you've ever worked with a leader, like let's just say you're introducing something innovative and you have a leader who is like very process oriented and they're like, things have to be done this way. And which is there's a time and place for that. But if the
Yeah.
initiative you have is more innovative, then are you ready or do you need to coach that leader, right? Or like prepare them for the
Hmm.
change or partner them with someone who can help that initiative move forward and maybe they balance each other out. So capacity, readiness, leadership. I also think like an analysis from, like the current state of where you are
Hmm.
and the future state and what is in between that. And particularly if it's a technology rollout, who's impacted, right? Even doing a stakeholder analysis to be able to see uh, which groups, which roles, right, which positions are impacted by this new process, this new technology? How are they impacted, and are they actually ready? And then once you've gathered all of that and assess where you are, you can develop a strategy, right, a project plan in tandem with your change plan, and with keeping the employees in mind throughout the entire project, so that as you are checking the milestones and checking the budget and checking the technical requirements, you're also checking, do the people, like, are they motivated, are they prepared, are they actually adopting this new way of doing things? And
Mm.
if you're doing the work up front as well as shadowing it across the project, then the idea would be that at the end of the project, it would be successful. Not successful because from a technical standpoint you went live, right?
Yeah.
But successful that you went live, technology's working or process is working, and the people are embracing it. And
Yep.
statistically, 70% of projects fail, and it's been like that for 30 years or more, right? Where everyone, the stat hasn't changed, and I think we do change management a lot better. And leading up to this calculator, I think it's important for leaders to see the cost, right?
Yeah. So question from the audience here. What's an example? Let's say in the case of developers adopting a new technology, what does that look
Yeah,
like at the developer level?
yeah.
I've
So
got thoughts, but I'll let
That
you.
that's a good question. So an example would be, let's just say, so a lot of development teams use Jira, right? So
Yeah.
let's just say maybe the team was using a spreadsheet before Jira,
Mhm.
and leadership says, "All right, we're going to start using Jira to track development," right? And so there's a behavioral change that comes alongside that. Maybe you were using the spreadsheet or using the other tool prior to that to enter in your information, and now you have to learn the tool, learn how it works, learn the workflows of that tool. You have to learn, like, what reports are they using, and how are you going to input your information to make sure you're in alignment with that. And so there would likely be some sort of project manager who would ensure that everyone is trained, right? Like, that the functionality is working, because every system gets configured differently based on the
Mhm.
team that's using it. And so the change management portion of that would be ensuring that the developers understand how to use it, that
Mm.
they've had input and saying, like, hey, like, I know that this team is using it this way, but we need to use it this way. But if that doesn't happen, you go live with Jira, and developers are kind of confused about what to do.
Yeah.
Also, from a change management standpoint, helping the team understand the value of that, and allowing them to be a part of that, the part of the
Mm.
process for implementing it, so they don't resist as much.
I know, like, developers love to be in a state of flow
Yes.
where you're just thinking and it just, no one's interrupting you. You just got the code coming.
Mhm.
And that happens when you're totally familiar with your tools,
Yes.
right? And then there is, it's hard when you're asked to learn to do something new
Mhm.
because suddenly you don't have that anymore. It's You're slow, and it's kind of
Exactly.
like the valley of suck, before
Exactly.
you get back up to where you're in flow again. And in some ways, change management is like taking an entire organization through what that individual developer
Yes.
goes through.
Mhm.
The, when you're looking for the ROI calculator, because I think another thing I was thinking about, in terms of developers, developers love being agile. It's an actual
Yes.
methodology we've got. Um, the you've got a bunch of developers that want to just go out and build stuff, and companies run by those developers are exciting places to work.
Yes.
But eventually, they bring in the process people, and you're talking about that leader that's very process oriented, and
Mhm.
um, the if you've got a dev team that's like, hey, we're going to do this, we've got this idea, we're going to be trying some things out, some of them are going to fail. um, the that type of leader suddenly feels very out of control,
Yes.
and that can be a problem for everybody, because then they'll start coming down, dropping the hammer on the dev team, and then the dev team, like, hey, we had ideas, we're going here, we're agile, now we've got to, like, check the boxes. This is
Hmm.
awful. Um, when I think about your ROI calculator, and part of me, I don't want to like brainstorm for the hackathon teams are going to build something because this might not be a good idea, but giving that leader a tool like a model they can use
Hmm.
to be like, okay, I see things are slowing down. If they speed up within this time frame, we're back on track, and I feel better. Um, is is that the type of thing you see your ROI calculator being able to do to go beyond just the initial ROI, but become a tool that they return to?
Yeah, I
Mhm.
think longer term, definitely, and I
Mhm.
don't know, like the scope of the ROI calculator as introduced didn't span out that far, but definitely longer term,
Yeah.
allowing it to be a decision making tool. And so, to your point about the development team, so if the development team, they want to be in a flow state, and not just development teams, every team likes to be
Oh,
in the flow state
finance.
where yeah, finance, any
Yeah.
team, once you learn your job, you're like, yep, I know it, and I want to flow, even if new new challenges are introduced from other directions, as long as it doesn't change the way that you operate, you can kind of still flow for the most part. But if, let's just say, you implement a new tool and it introduces 15 more steps to your work, now you're slowed down, right? You're slowed down, your
Mhm.
productivity has decreased, you have to learn this new thing. And on top of that, you might be less engaged if you weren't involved. And if you have an opinion to say, like, if you would have asked me, we could have got it done in 3 steps, but now there's 15 steps.
Yeah.
And so, what the calculator is introduced will do is allow the leader to, number one, see the cost of doing nothing, right? Like, so help them to kind of process through, if we
Mhm.
don't include the team and we don't have a change strategy that's a part of this new initiative, this new way of doing things, whether it's a dev team, a finance team, a customer service team, or an entire organization, what is that going to cost, right? What is the risk of failure for this? There's like no new, I'm gonna say no new, but not a lot of new projects that happen out there. Usually you can benchmark off of something that happened in the past. So even being able to say, like, a similar project, of the scale size and the company size, uh, that failed or maybe succeeded, being able to even use that information as, like, to benchmark, to be able to show the leader it's important for you to get that people buy-in. And sometimes leaders, especially at the executive level, do not take action unless they can see how it impacts the bottom line, unless they can see dollars attached to it. It's like, that's a great idea, but it's not going to really move the needle. So the idea of the calculator
Mhm.
is to help the leaders see, like, the cost of inaction, like the missed opportunities, the disengagement, the potential project failures, the delays, right? Being able to offer actionable recommendations and maybe predictive insights from industry benchmarks, like using and leveraging AI. Again, there's a lot of public information out there, so being
Yeah.
able to show them their particular project and the cost of inaction, but also some predictive analytics from
Mhm.
industry benchmarks, and then being able to, like, visualize that for them to be able to see, like, here's what it will cost, here's the cost of doing nothing, here's the return on investment if you manage this change well.
Mhm.
And by the way, here's a few tips for you as you get ready to prepare to embark on this change.
Yeah. When when you, I think you've described it pretty well, actually, what you're looking for. But
Thank you.
what, but I'll just go ahead and ask again. What, what does an awesome ROI calculator look like?
I would say, the, it would have, like, first, like, some inputs, right? So I would want it to be valuable and specific for the person who's using it, right? So,
Mhm.
a project always has a budget. So, of course, we want a way to enter in, like, what is your budget? What is your financial investment for this change, right?
Mhm.
Probably being able to uh, input, like, the number of employees that are impacted, any other factors that pertain to that
Yeah.
project that we kind of scope out, the duration of that project. I would also want it to factor in, there are a lot of statistics that talk about the cost of not managing change well. So for example, there's one stat out there, I think, that says like for every $1 billion spent, $480 million is wasted in, because of lack of change management, and that 70% of projects fail because of lack of change management. So even digging into like what goes behind those stats, right? And so like if we can factor that into the cost to show like how managing change will help improve and enhance their results. The outputs would be probably like the cost of doing nothing, projecting the return on investment for their teams being ready. I would also think like some sort of actionable AI driven recommendations on like how to tailor a strategy, or even like writing up a report. So for me as a tech company now and consultant, being able to have a report that shows here's the cost and here's how you build a case for executive leadership, right? To be able to buy in, something like that. And then some sort of dynamic visualization report that maybe they could enter in information for different projects. And I'm visual, so I'm doing like this, but like enter in information about different projects that could show them, and maybe they're deciding, do we go with this project or that project, and they could see.
Yeah. A couple questions here. So the first one, benchmark of financial ratios in change management projects. So we've got a bunch of resource links
Yes.
for that people can dig into. And I think they'll probably find some things in there. I know there's one from KPMG that's probably pretty tight on the financial impact. But what do you
Yes.
when you're looking for those types of benchmarks, especially for failure? I think failure is really interesting. Where do you go? What do you think of?
So I go to like some of the big consulting agencies, the KPMG, McKinsey, and organizations like that have some really good studies out there. And so I think there's enough public information to kind of help pull some of that information and some of those stats together to come up with with those benchmarks, coupled with kind of the discussions that we have, right, to be able to come up with a unique and more comprehensive way to calculate it.
Yeah. So I think it's kind of related to this question. Um, you know, understanding, the project is, management can see the data, pros and cons before introducing, new product or new process, even, I would say,
Hmm.
to the company. And I think it's a little more than that. I think it's like, where does AI fit in
Yeah.
your vision? Like you can create a model where the numbers add up or
Hmm.
don't, but the I think that there's a real opportunity to add in intelligence.
Yes, I agree. So I
Yeah.
want to rewind a little bit to the question that said, I think it was asking if managers, let me see if I can see it over here.
Yeah.
If managers, where'd it go?
Is it this one?
Yeah, so I have multiple monitors. So I'm looking, yeah.
Yeah.
So no. It was the one that was just about managers being able to see the data. So if I remember
Okay.
it correctly,
Yeah.
they were asking if they could see the data about a product or process beforehand.
Yeah.
And I think, just to your point, little more than that, like being able to see not just data, but the cost, and being able to see how maybe other organizations have handled a change like that,
Mm-hmm.
and also looking at their unique project
Mm-hmm.
details and saying, if we don't manage this right, what is it going to cost us
Yeah.
overall? So I wanted to go there. And then second question was about AI. I do think that there is a great opportunity to introduce intelligence. So because we have this huge landscape with, project data, statistics about failed changes, statistics about the lack of
Mm-hmm.
engagement from employees during
Yeah.
these sort of changes, and other studies that have been done, being able to pull all that information together and synthesize it, and overlay it to the actual project that is being introduced by the leader, and using intelligence to not just calculate
Mm-hmm.
the cost of doing nothing or the return on investment, but give insights on, hey, here's how you may want to um, roll this change out. Here's some ideas for strategies to mitigate risks,
Mhm.
right? And maximize ROI. Maybe we add it, and whoever decides to take on this project, I think they can have some freedom and liberty to kind of think. And as they learn more about it, like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if we could add in, like I'm an ideas person, but
Yeah.
like whoever takes on this project, we could be idea people together, right?
Yeah.
And like think about how we can
Yeah.
leverage, AI to drive those recommendations so that it's not just a calculator, it's also a tool kind of to get them started at the beginning of the project on what they should be thinking about. Maybe even from benchmarking or reviewing similar projects, being able to write out a few questions to ask their leadership team, right, as they prepare and begin to strategize how they're going to roll this out. Even maybe plannings on
Mhm.
how to integrate their project management team with their change management team based on their unique situation.
Yeah. This was just a good comment that came in while you're talking. So, putting into perspective for leaders, all the features that go into transitioning from old process to a new one and how much it's worth. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah,
Mhm.
that encapsulates it really well because I read a case study. I think it was Mission Produce. Don't quote me on this. It was an article, and it talked about they rolled out a new like ERP system for employee system that manages a lot of the data and workflows, and they did not understand how much it was going to cost, right, as it pertains to the people getting involved. And from the article that I read, it said that number one, and what we can put this, Matt, in our I think we have it in there already,
Yeah.
but they went, I think, 9 months over the time frame, and they spent $4 million, I believe, extra because they had to bring in other consultants because the team went back to the manual way of doing things because it wasn't rolled out effectively.
Well,
So to your point, the question that came in, you know, what is it worth and what is it going to cost? I think being able to have, tangible answers like that, and being able to say, and maybe there might be decisions like, should we even go through with this right now? Or maybe
yeah.
we should wait
Yeah.
until, there's less of a risk. Or, you know what? We're going to do it anyway. And now that we know the risks, we're going to mitigate those risks.
Yeah. I think that, disengagement
Mhm.
is, I mean, I'm also thinking through, where does AI help here? And it's that, at what point do people become disengaged? It's
Yes.
AI is helpful for understanding people, and this is a people
Yes.
problem. And so it's the, if if you get in front of it now and get people on board now, if you
Hmm.
wait 2 weeks, if you wait 4 weeks, and if you don't check in and be sure that they're still
Yes.
engaged, and then this is one question that just came in. So, what are the ideas on the marketing side that you would give a team thinking they're thinking of a nonprofit organization?
Hmm.
How do they structure their presentation part on market research? And so, I think the question is about um, the what will this help us get share? If the idea is that this is going to help us get share,
Hmm.
does that fit into the the calculator?
And
Like
by
the
share, you mean
project
like
succeed.
buy-in from.
Market share. No, I mean market share. I mean, like if we do this
That's
change,
a good.
I don't
That is
know.
a
I don't know,
really
and I don't know
good.
if I got Piece's question correct either. I might be
Yep.
asking
Peace.
my
Let
own
us know if that's what
question.
you meant. But even if you didn't, I think that's a great angle because when, let's just say, even thinking about AI, and you have competitors in your space, right? And everybody's like, we got to get AI, we got to get it. But if you have a calculator and you're like, is this the right time for me to do it? And one example that I like to give is like, I'm an Apple user on my phone, right? And some are Android users, and that's fine. But one of the things about Apple, the way that they handle themselves in the market, they're not trying to be the first to market, right? They want to be the best. They want to see someone like trial it, do it, and people make fun of it, Apple online, like Android had these features before, but their strategy is such that they wait. And so I like the idea of the market with the calculator because there could be an angle to say like, should we pursue this new thing or this new
Mhm.
feature or this new way of doing things or this new process? How is it going to impact us as a team? And will that slow us down? Will it cost us too much? And when we lose market share, I don't know. I
Mm,
hadn't researched that too much,
mm.
but just on the surface, I like the idea of making it even bigger than that piece. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, 'cause it's not just about saving money.
Yes.
At some
Yeah.
point, it's gotta be about making money.
Yeah. I love
Mhm.
that. And
Yeah.
because change is not just internal, right? There are a
Mhm.
lot of external factors that
Mm.
go into leading a change. Like, for example, if something happens in the economy, we had COVID
Mhm.
happen. So even being able to look
Yeah.
at external factors that could happen and think about,
Yeah.
oh, I'm thinking about a whole lot of ideas, like even ideas of what you could change, right? Like, so
Yeah.
what you could change in
Yeah.
business and then be able to
Mm.
think what it might
Yeah.
cost you. So both.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and so maybe don't do this change, try this. I think that's
Yes.
where AI can help. Um, so Selvie put in that question I just posted about, visualizing the impact, with data beforehand for management level users using AI. So I think, yeah, there's going to be a lot of different pieces to this calculator,
Mhm.
and I don't know if any single project will get every piece together.
Yes.
But if you focus on just visualizing it for management,
Yes.
and because there's some managers that will love to go through the 1,000 row spreadsheet and find the
Mhm.
one cell that they're going to argue about. Love those managers. They're involved. But there's also the managers that are like, I need to make a decision fast. I need to make the right decision. Show it to me.
Yes.
Um,
And to your point,
yeah,
the involved leader has its place, but for where things are in the marketplace now, I think that we're coming into a season where things are going to move faster than ever. And so leaders are going to have to be equipped with tools and resources and visualizations that allow them to make decisions in a split second, because technology is processing through more information than a human
yeah,
could, right?
yeah,
And if you have to make a decision, there's someone said a quote that I like. They said, like, AI is not going to replace people's jobs. It is going to come alongside the people who come alongside AI, rather, are going to make the most money and be able to add the most value. So in that instance, having a visualization to be able to make a quick decision.
mhm,
Why do I need someone to process through all these rows if I have a tool to do that, and to give you the ability to make the decision? And back to the whole market question, if you can make decisions faster than your competitors, isn't that better?
yeah,
Sometimes, right? Sometimes maybe not in some instances, but for the most part, I think in certain instances, yes, if you have
mhm,
that information and it's accurate. And so being able to
mhm,
have people spend time maybe on accuracy, or other things, right?
yeah,
Other than trying to go through the spreadsheet with
yeah, yeah,
2,000 rows on it.
yeah. There's precision and there's accuracy, and those are
Yes.
different.
Ooh,
Um,
I like that distinction.
yeah, that's engineering. The So yeah, I think we'll probably wrap up pretty soon here. So folks, get your questions into the chat. But you talked earlier about being idea people together. I love that because that's
Mhm.
what a hackathon is.
Yes.
Um, and the so you are, I mean, I know that when we talked, you're hoping to use this stuff for your business.
Yes, I
So
am.
so folks, please, put your projects out there with a friendly open source license like the MIT.
Mhm.
And Shara, I know you've also said that, like, yeah, you want to talk to these folks if they've got a good project.
Mhm.
And so we'll be able to find them, for you, so you can, be idea people together. Um,
Yes.
the um, I'm going to send you an invite to the hackathon too, so you can register as an advisor.
Yes, I
Um,
will.
and I don't know if you'll get 100 email requests asking you for people to check over their shoulder on their project. I don't do
Mhm.
that. Let them do the work themselves. But I will get you in there so they can contact you. Um, but as we wrap up, what are your? I mean, why? Let me go all the way back to before we talked.
Mhm.
Remember, a colleague of mine, Lacey, introduced us.
Yes.
Why? Uh, I can't. Why did you put this idea out there with for the hackathon? Um,
Well, I am, if you can't tell by now, I'm passionate about leading effective change, right? And
yeah,
so one of the things that I found from, trainings and consulting is that there is usually a gap from the vision that a leader has to the
mhm,
execution, right? And
yeah,
in the middle, there is the people who, I don't want to use the word suffer, but I can't think of it like they're
Do the
suffering,
work.
right? Yeah,
They're
they're
working
working
hard.
and they feel they don't always feel as valued, and it's not as much about their feelings as it is like the feelings and being able to collaborate and work as a team. And a lot of times there's just misunderstandings because we work and everybody's different. And so
Mhm.
I am passionate about how can you get everyone to work together, unique different people to work together for a common goal and accomplish an initiative right
Mhm.
together that is successful. And a lot of times those changes aren't successful. And then as I was doing presentations and trainings, I kept quoting the stat like 70% of changes fail, and I was like proud of it, like they failed, that's why you need my service. Then I was
Yeah.
thinking, so then one day I googled like how long has the stat been. It's like 30. I'm like 30, wait a minute,
Yeah.
people have been
Like,
saying this stat for 30 years, which means are we moving the needle or are we
yeah.
not? Like,
Yeah.
and if we're not moving the needle and I like change, I'm going to drive change and hopefully
Yeah.
move that stat because we create something that allows leaders, right, and executives to transform how
Mhm.
organizations approach change, right? By giving them insights into the risks, the benefits, and helps them prevent
Mhm.
that business failure and optimize their investments for long term success. And so that kind of drove me. I know it was a long answer, but
Yeah.
I am
I like it.
passionate
Yeah.
about that.
And I think that, so Christine put in this question about, what's the biggest pushback that will come from your customers, or um, what a couple ways that I think about that. First of all, like if I'm a manager and someone says, hey, we need to bring in a change management consultant here. Like, yeah, 70% of things fail anyways. Why bother? They probably won't say that, but
In
what's
their
the,
mind, they might say it.
yeah. But I mean, yeah, kind of anticipating, a difficult sale. what what do you have to, when you go into this type of, presentation to a client or negotiation with a client? What kind of pushback do you prepare yourself for that this calculator could help address up front?
Yeah, so I was gonna say, like, I was fixing my mouth to like mention, like, this tool is going to be huge for for me because again, to your point, Matt, about 70% of changes failing, and it's been that way for so long. That is the mantra. Like we already know that, so we're gonna do the best that we can, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's opportunity to save money, but if you don't visually see something and there's no way to quantify what that looks like, and you think what is the purpose of doing something extra if 70% is going to fail anyway, we'll just keep trying and trying until we get it right. But having this tool will allow me to be able to say like, hey, here's the cost of doing nothing, right? And here's what you could change, and here's the potential return on investment. That gives a visual way. It's kind of like making a business case, right? Like so
Yeah.
um being able to clearly show why investing in change readiness makes financial sense for the business. And
Yeah.
while every leader may not be able to understand change management and may not want to dig into all of that, what they are and what's important to them is the financial aspect, right? And so being able to show them financially why this makes sense, I think is going to allow me or other businesses to overcome some of those objections, right, as it
Yeah.
pertains to like, well, why do we need this? Like, well, guess what, do you want to lose $100 million? Like if you could say that to somebody, it's like, do you want to lose $100 million or do you want to save this? Being able to show that, and well, how do you
Mhm.
know? Well,
Yeah.
typically organizations like yours who went through a change like this uh, had this sort of resistance or whatever the case may be and had this
Mhm.
sort of outcome. And so here's a few tips for you as you develop your strategy. We want to get ahead of it so that as you prepare for this change, you are well informed to be able to, what is it, like measure twice, cut once, so that you
Yeah.
can save money on the front end rather than waiting until later.
Yeah. Measure twice, cut once is all. That sounds like a good name for a project. I've always loved that phrase.
I like,
Yeah.
yeah. How
Yeah.
about let's let it be written. We're gonna
Yeah.
implement that somewhere. Like we're measuring twice, cutting one, because that's essentially what the calculator does. It
Yeah.
allows us to measure and have a visualization for that measure, so that when you cut, you only have to cut once, and so you roll out the change, and you do it uh, with the most informed data, right, that you can.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, so it looks like that's all the questions for now. We'll go ahead and wrap up. We'll get you the invite to Hackbox, and we'll see you there. And maybe we'll have you back on in a week or so after people dig in, and start getting to the hard part of the project,
Yes,
if you're up for that. So
I
do
am.
a second one of these. Yeah. Okay.
Well, I'm
Awesome.
excited. Thank you, Matt, for having me on here.
Thanks so much for your energy. This has been great.
And thanks for all the questions, everybody.
Sure.
Looking forward to working with one of you as idea partners.
Yeah. Great.
Or
Yeah.
all
Great
of you. I
engaged
don't know,
audience.
however many.
Yeah. There'll be a bunch. Yeah.
Cool.
Take care.
Right.